Stay.
Yeah.
Stay. Start going on you.
All right, perfect timing, perfect timing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a quorum.
Uh, Chair Brown, no, we do not have a quorum yet. Per our policies, the youth representative does not count.
7+1.
They don't count.
Count in our
They get to vote.
hearts.
Thank
They get to vote.
you.
Mhm, yeah.
Just mute it for a second. Well, Chair Brown, it looks at this point, we are not going to have a quorum for tonight's meeting. So we will not be able to take any official action at today's meeting. We can do an overview of items, which most of the items on the agenda are overview. The only action that was going to be requested tonight was approval of the agenda and the past meeting minutes from the past 2 minutes.
Okay, so we'll just have discussion and not adopt.
And then as I say that, Commissioner Stolberg has now joined us.
There we go. All right,
So we now have a quorum.
great. Then I'll open the March Commission on Equity meeting at 5:40 p.m. Welcome, everybody. So at this time, I'll accept a motion to approve for the approval of the agenda, the previous meeting minutes and consent items.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the agenda, previous meeting minutes and consent items with the exception of the item on African American Community Forum.
We have a second.
A second.
It's been moved and properly second that we adopt the meeting agenda, previous meeting minutes and consent items minus the meeting minutes from the March 21st Black and African American Community Forum. Any discussion on those items? Great. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It's adopted. Now I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes from the Black African American Forum.
Mr. Chair, I ask those to be separated in that the minutes I feel need to have an attachment that reflects what's at the tail end of our agenda for the official record for anyone not present that will be able to reference the addendum or an attachment to the minutes of that forum.
Okay, so I'll accept the motion to accept the minutes, then as part of the discussion, we can have those, we can highlight that. Okay. So
I move adoption then of the agenda, the meeting minutes for the Black and African American Community Forum.
do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we adopt the minutes from the Black African American Community Forum discussion.
The point that interests me is the fact that it was a tremendous event. We got the kind of participation and involvement that we were looking for. And as we enter the official minutes of that, to actually attach the input, the comments, the questions. So as we're moving forward, trying to make use of the information we gathered as a forum, we have it as part of the minutes. And with the separation, just under notes and all, as the end of our full agenda. We have other forums to come up, and in the same way, we want to know what's on the minds of our ethnic community members, what questions, and just so what we have. I know I took a bunch of copious notes that goes along with what has been attached here. So in what's kind of succinct manner can we make that an official attachment to the minutes of that forum? That's my only concern.
Shannon, those were provided to us. Would they consider an attachment to the minutes or?
So Chair Brown, here at the city, we like to take what's called action minutes, which means that there are very streamlined meeting minutes. And so they don't provide, verbatim questions or quotes or, kind of play-by-play overviews of the meetings. May I suggest though to the commission that to attach that type of feedback, we could certainly add a sentence that would hyperlink to the staff report that provides that information. And it could be an updated staff report if there's any additional information that you all feel like you want to make sure is added as part of that report overall, so that anybody who visits those minutes online in the future could be able to access directly that staff report with the information in it.
And it's not my intention that they need to be verbatim or, you know, all that kind of thing. The major issues were, the major concerns raised, you know, so if a hyperlink will get us there, as long as it shows up somewhere that these were the things that happened, these were the discussions that were held. I just think it's very important as we move forward as an equity commission. And what's the purpose of these forums if we aren't making use of the information we gather from the people who choose to show up? Whatever format that will best work without it being a voluminous transcript of a recording, and that's certainly not what I'm asking for. As long as that's there and it's clear when people go into the website for the city and they're looking for information on the forum, this will take them to. And I see it's in various kind of formats. Some people wrote on the actual form, you know, just so we've got some succinct readability as we move from one forum to the next, so that it has as much value as possible for the purpose we were trying to achieve.
Shannon, can we create a folder that has each of those meetings? So maybe for our use or even for community members' use, if they see that there was a forum with the youth council, a forum with the senior citizens, a forum, the African American, that there's a folder or something where that information can be accessed. And then as we do future ones, just you go to the, say, forums folder, whatever the name may be, and you can see each one of the forums and the minutes from it and other information.
Sure, Brown, we could certainly take a look at creating something like that. I do want to make note that all of the minutes and agendas are currently available on the Commission on Equity's webpage within the city's webpage. But something that highlights kind of what we're hearing from the quorum or forums is certainly something we could take a look at creating.
Any further discussion?
I just agreed to that information that we got is very valuable and that it's with an easy connection to the title, I mean, to the minutes.
Yeah.
Easy accessible.
Even if it's like a direct answer to each question that we asked. I know we asked like 4 questions, so it could be like, you know, the question and a few short answers, or like, you know, a 2-sentence answer, 1 question, just summarizing everything that we achieved in each of the meetings.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Then all in favor of adopting the minutes from the African American Community Forum, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Okay, then it's adopted. And now we'll turn to public comment. We have a couple of guests in the chambers today. Do you wish to provide a public comment? Nothing. Okay. Do we have anyone on Zoom that would like to present?
Chair Brown, at this time, we have nobody on Zoom or nobody by phone.
Okay. And we did receive some email public comments. I counted 3. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we did receive and acknowledge the receipt of the 3 public comments during the month.
And I would say that a couple of those were similar leading up to our public forum. And I have a couple of comments on them, but I'll save it to the agenda item where we are reviewing the form, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you. Right. An inspirational item for today is from Commissioner Hart, and she just sent me a note that she would not be attending today. I just got a text from her.
I volunteered to replace her.
Okay, well,
Okay. I'm gonna turn to a random poem, you guys. Something you guys need to hear.
There you go.
Okay, nice. That's pretty good. All right. Oh, yes. Okay, so I performed this at the Langston Hughes Poetry event. Mr. Brown invited me to. Okay, so this is basically about trying to be the best version of yourself and realizing that you determine that rather than other people. That makes sense. Okay, so it says, in spite of the times when my thoughts begin to unwind and the time just doesn't feel divine, I wonder why, in a world so shy, full of kindness and good cries, selflessness and no lies, honesty, and I tried so hard to be the best me in the open and in times when nobody sees, outspoken, but somehow still seem to be the outcast, down bad, people mad. You know you can't please everyone. But when it's all said and done, there will never be one day where you are not misunderstood. So might as well be yourself, put opinions on the shelf and do what you are called to, listen to your flaws and own the name you call. Be you despite of it all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So this takes us to our first business item for today, and that will be the scholarship policy review.
Great, thank you. Well, I'm Jen Burbidge, Director of Parks, Culture and Recreation for the city. Nice to see you all again, those of you that I know.
I'm
And
Sarah Smith. I'm the Executive Assistant for Parks, Culture and Recreation. Nice to see everyone again. I'm usually online, so.
Okay.
oh, do you want to pull it up while I'm introducing? Okay, Sarah's gonna pull that up while I'm just kind of giving a brief introduction, and then we'll have her actually take the first piece. So we're here tonight to review the scholarship program and get recommendations from the Commission on Equity. This is a policy that the Parks Board, with help from staff, had revamped in 2019.
Sarah, do you want to share the screen with the
Does
audience?
help, doesn't it?
In 2019, and the Parks Board's intention was to really do a robust review of how the new scholarship policy was working. When it ended up happening was COVID, and so things slowed down quite a bit. And so we're just now finally circling back now that things have picked up and we can, see how the new policy and the parameters are working out. And we also have some suggested changes to go before Parks Board at their upcoming April 5th meeting. And we really want to get this new policy or the policy updated prior to our summer day camp registration, which opens April 26th. So our scholarship program has helped provide financial assistance to many families in Lacey and allowed some to participate who might not have otherwise been able to. And like I said, in 2019, the goals of the revamp were offer opportunities to those who could not afford to otherwise, to advertise the program better so that it's more accessible and known throughout the community, and then to really work on getting a stable source of funds in a dedicated account. So, really looking for donors who want to help youth with the scholarship program and really build that. In the past, it's been a great program prior to 2019. It just hasn't been well advertised, and it's kind of, I feel like it operated more like a word of mouth program rather than really just getting it out there in a robust way. So that's a little bit of background. And as you know, the Commission on Equity has the draft DEI strategic plan that you're working on. And it includes the following strategy: provide robust and community-driven park and recreation resources where physical, financial, and social barriers to use are eliminated. So this is obviously a financial, helping to eliminate a financial barrier. And so with that, I'm gonna pass it over to Sarah to do, and I want to thank her for doing a real deep dive into this. She's done a program analysis, and as the executive assistant for the department, she oversees this program. And so she'll do the annual reporting of it, and she gets all the scholarship requests that come through. And then after she's done, we're really going to focus on attachment 3, which is the updated policy. We've also included the original format of what the policy looked like, but we're trying to get all of our policies in the same format, much like the sponsorship one that you reviewed recently. And then we also have some of the public facing information that we would update that's in your packet as well. That's attachment 4. That would be updated once the policy was approved. We would take that approved language and add it into that public facing information, but we just provided everything for you today. So pass it over to you.
Okay, so I'm gonna go just through a brief overview of what the analysis involved, what we found, what information we're hoping for, why we did it, all that good stuff. So the park board actually asked for an analysis after we made some changes to the program overall in 2021. It's still part of the work plan for 2023. It's always gonna be a work in progress to reach as many people as we can. So our primary goal of the program is to really focus on removing barriers to program access for people and families that really need it. The analysis broke down a lot of different things. It broke down utilization rates. So when people were awarded scholarship money, did they actually use it? How many people were applying and where a lot of these folks were located, what our density looks like. So it included a lot of different things. So this analysis period went from 2021 through 2022. So it covered both full calendar years. That way we had 2 years to compare against, which was very, very useful. But our key findings, the three most important ones we found were applications overall increased sharply between 21 and 22. You can see there. We did get a bunch of unique versus recurring applicants, but we also awarded a lot more money than we did in 2021.
Sarah, do you think you could zoom in just a few clicks up on the top to make it a little easier to read? Thank you.
There we go. Is that better? So then we got our awarded numbers and then our scholarship fund usage, so that like if we give people $200, do they use $200? The volume of funds people were using actually also went up by quite a bit. So we had way less remaining last year than we did the year before. So we also have several funding sources available. Right now we have the City of Lacey General Fund. This one renews every single year, so this annually replenishes. The rest of these funds are considered restricted funds or they're one-time use. Once they're done, they're done. So we really focus on trying to exhaust these funds first.
And I'll add just real quick, pending city council approval, of course.
Yes, pending city council approval, yes.
It's a line item in the city's budget.
And we do have an increased amount of funding for 2023. So we actually did get another donation from the Park Foundation, which bumped that up to just shy of $12,000. So our visual data that I included in here, it really covers information available on how the key findings were made. So we were hoping to use maps for a better understanding of areas with less access to program availability. We wanted to see where folks were really residing and if these were areas we were advertising in, if it was like an advertisement versus word of mouth conflict. So in 2023, we do expect to have, well, I'll go through these a little bit more actually. So I put these in order. This was our highest applicant zip code, and these two were tied for our lowest applicant zip codes. And then we had, this was the boundary map of the zip code with the most number of applicants, which matches our density map pretty well. But in conclusion, we really believe we're fully anticipating a greater number of applicants for the scholarship program coming up in 2023. We are continuing to increase our marketing efforts. And so we're putting up posters that are going to be year round in the schools at North Thurston. We have better accessibility and visibility on the scholarship program. So we made some changes to our website to make it more front and center where the scholarship information is located. And we're also trying to get in contact with groups like the homeschool youth who usually get overlooked in these situations. We did notice as part of our conclusion, a gap in service that one of our staffers identified. Cody found that there is a gap with youth who are experiencing houselessness. So we started to revise our process a little bit to see how we could address this gap a little bit better. And we're trying to partner more closely with NTPS about it. So Director Burbidge is going to review the revised policy with you guys a little bit more though on that. And then we're hoping to get feedback from you guys about those gaps and see from an equity lens what you guys see. So I'll turn it back over to Jen.
Yeah, and we'll just pause if there's any questions about the analysis for Sarah or myself.
Yes, you have one? Just a couple notes I made here. So the numbers appear to be small. You know, 14 to 31, that's not a lot of applicants there. So my question has to do with the communications plan. You talked about marketing it better and getting it out. What do you use to communicate that scholarships are available, and what have you identified as additional ways to get it to more people?
So initially it was, like Jen kind of said, it was word of mouth. And last year we also ramped up our advertising efforts there. So we had posts made on the Facebook. We had a mailer go out with the utility mailers. We sent one out with scholarship information there. And then now we're also trying to see if putting flyers out at some of our events, our more highly trafficked events, along with paper applications. So folks that don't have access to the internet can receive the opportunity there as well. And they can just turn them into staff on site, so they don't have to take them and bring them back. We're also putting in, we just finished working with NTPS to put up a year-round poster that's going to link them to the scholarship if they're able to use QR codes on their phone. We do advertising through Peach Jar as well, which lets us get information in the hands of every, I believe it's middle and elementary schools. Is it both?
You can select, yep, it can be all.
We make sure it goes home with them and it gets in their parents' hands that way.
So that's an email communication, actually, the Peach Jar. No, we actually used to distribute brochures physically, but we've gotten away from that after COVID. A lot of people are using the digital services.
Yeah, so we're trying to make sure that we're trying to reach out to these groups, like our park board chair is, Parks Board Chair is fantastic. She got in touch with some of the homeschool organizations in the area. And we're trying to reach those kids as well by working directly with them so we can email their lists and let them know more about it. It's always in our Lacey Life newsletter, and it's in our Parks newsletter as well. So we're trying to make it as advertised as possible. And I know we post about it on our website too.
Yeah, and then the other thing additionally is with the liaison, the school counselors, North Thurston Public Schools counselors, are staff that Sarah mentioned, are one of our recreation supervisors, Cody Lee, has a very close relationship with the counselors at the schools and has been able to get some of these scholarships, particularly for our day camp program. We have a Playground Pals summer camp program in conjunction with the school's free summer lunch program. That program is free to kids, and so there's no scholarship needed because it's just a free program. But the summer day camp is a fee-based program. And actually, you know what I realized this analysis does not include is some of the specialized funding that we got.
Yes, our SEEK grant. I was thinking about that too, actually. Our numbers look pretty low because we also had a SEEK grant come through last year, which was really impactful. I believe Cody said it was something like 190 kids. Was that the number? It was a big number, but it was for summer camps only. It was exclusively for summer camps. So because that was bookmarked or earmarked funds for specifically day camps, it did impact our numbers a little bit in that sense, but it reached a really wide audience.
But that's something that we won't have for 2023. So these funds will definitely be more heavily accessed, and particularly with the proposed update that we have, or we believe, but again, looking for feedback on that.
Have you considered developing a list of community organizations to go to directly as well as those other areas?
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, some of the local, churches or some local nonprofits, some others that maybe working with the Boys and Girls Club to get information out through them on the why, it's in addition, to hopefully increase, the number. Okay, and so it looks like there were funds left over. Is that-
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, and the general fund dollars, don't carry over, but the donations we've received specifically for youth scholarships,
Mhm.
or if we get a donation for any specific reason, we actually restrict those funds and we roll them over, so they're still available. So those don't go away. So we're, again, assuming they'll be more heavily accessed this
Okay,
coming summer.
okay, Commissioner Clay.
Does this include the, like, sports leagues, like the little kid, soccer's and that
Yeah, it's just all
all
overall
the parks
recipients.
are full with right
Yeah,
now?
if we got a scholarship, they're included in our numbers.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. And then other, just idea that for, at parks to have a reader, a message board, a bulletin board, secure bulletin board, because at our park, there's been some like stick in the ground or try to tape it onto the park sign or something, but actual boards that you could continue to, use and, put.
We have
put in
kiosks
message
at
board.
some parks and,
Yes.
and actually there, we use a lot of photos to really pull people in. I don't know if you've seen the one at Woodland Creek Park or along the Woodland, Karen Fraser Woodland Trail. We've got the kiosks, but that's something that we could highlight the scholarship program on,
Mhm.
since it's already something that's going up.
I live near Bush Park.
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
Just packed with people.
Yeah,
But I
Bush
think-
doesn't have a kiosk, so it's a great idea.
I was curious, like, what kinds of scholarships, are you guys, is there anything specific, or is it just like, if anybody needs a scholarship for anything, they can apply and then get rewarded?
Yes, so if they meet certain criteria for eligibility, like I believe it's free lunch and they have to be a resident of the city of Lacey. Or have a referral from the NT, hopefully if the change goes through to the policy, a referral from the NTPS homeless liaison. Because one of the barrier Cody specifically addressed is youth experiencing houselessness may not have access to a permanent address. So where they might have a place to sleep at night, they might not have a permanent address, which might disqualify them. So we are my gosh, I forgot what I was gonna say.
Well, and just interrupt if it comes back, but I was gonna say I can go through the policy real quick and see if you have.
Any of the
So it could be
Additional
like
question?
sports, school,
Yes.
like whatever you needed according to, as long as you fit the criteria.
Yes. And
Okay.
anytime
Any of
that
the
changes-
Parks Department activities.
Fee-based activities, yeah.
Yes.
We have some things that are,
Okay.
some things are already free, like
So
I
that's
mentioned,
not
the
what-
Playground Pals, a lot of our events are already free, but if it's a fee-based
So
program,
it's a
then
scholarship for a City of Lacey event.
yes,
Okay, there you go.
that's right.
And the only time that changes a little bit is, so these funds, anyone who qualifies, any program, whatever they want to use it for, they can use it for. But some of these, like this particular fund has restrictions on it. So we can use half for anything anyone wants, but half can only go to youth registering for sports programs. So that's why we try to go through this number, because it's unrestricted. And then we try to go into these, because some of them are donated with restrictions.
Okay.
So that's the only kind of like technical thing that happens.
Mr. Jack.
My question is along the lines of what you asked about Cliff and also Annie. When you talk about your marketing efforts, did you do an analysis of what you currently do to market to decide what you plan to do differently, since such a huge amount of your available funds were not availed? So something about the way you marketed, the message didn't get out to the people who could have utilized it.
Yeah.
And then secondly, as you talk about social media, email and that kind of thing, when you get into certain low-income communities and culturally different communities, they aren't your social media utilizers. And so when social media become the primary outreach, and you talk about the utility bills and that kind of thing, all of that I would think would need a good analysis of who are the people you're trying to reach and what are the vehicles you're trying to use to reach them, since obviously the data indicates that they weren't reached. And one of the comments we got in the community forum last week was a lack of non-school activities, particularly for Black kids and other low-income marginalized kids. So the messaging, is obviously not getting to the people who could utilize the scholarship programs. And so, as we get down through the policy, I'm just not reacting, but commenting on what's already been stated.
Will you go to the key takeaways real quick? At the very bottom.
Yes, so some of what we use this 2-year period for is to kind of get a baseline, because this is going to be a regular recurring analysis. So one of the reasons why we're also experiencing, or we're also believing we'll experience an increase, is because we're doing a lot more to market this year than we did the last 2 years. We did do a little bit more in 2022, so we started doing the utility bill inserts to kind of reach those people that don't do social media for whatever reason or don't have internet connection. And we're trying to make some more efforts this year to have paper copies of both all the scholarship information and the application itself readily available at as many community events as we can go to. One of the things we've been talking about is doing pop-up tents for parks. So we just go and have folks out in a park, one of the parks, and like talking to folks about whether or not they know about our scholarship, and then handing out materials. So people just in the park who may not have access to the internet have the ability to get in our scholarship program as well. So we're trying to do more of the non-digital as much as we are trying to do some more digital too. So we're trying to balance it out.
And perhaps the third takeaway, increasing advertising efforts would be more rather than increasing the advertising, figure out what's the most effective
Yeah.
or in addition to.
Because as Cliff talks about, reaching out and partnering with community-based organizations, church groups, and to figure out where are the people that you're trying to reach, and then to partner and to utilize those other community linkages that can help get the message out to people. But it was certainly stated as
Foster
a
care
Yeah.
organizations.
And as the community continues to grow, I mean, it's at such a rapid clip and it's growing in such diversity. What are the different communication mechanisms that are needed to effectively get to the people who you want the services to be available to? So it's a challenge.
Yeah, and perhaps, we can partner with public affairs too on that. I know Shannon and I have touched on that before of having a combined list because they're reaching out for other reasons, we're reaching out for parks and programs. But it's our same community, so.
It certainly seems like it'd be a great addition on our community connectivity analysis, which Sadie is gonna be picking up, working on. So I think there would certainly be kind of youth and youth services to add in.
And we're not
Commissioner Stover, did you have
duplicating.
anything?
It was John.
Oh, it was John?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi there. I came in a bit late, so please correct me if it's already been addressed, but I'm wondering, for the barriers portion for qualification, when you mentioned they have to qualify for the free reduced lunch program, is that entirely up to the city of Lacey on that policy, or is that something that's depending on the grant funding requirements?
Oh, right, so we'll get into that with the policy update, but that's up to the city. Yeah,
Okay.
that was a guideline. And so you're looking at the eligibility, are you looking at the policy?
The eligibility specifically. And I guess the reason for my question is, like, I grew up in a single parent household. My father had 2 kids. We never qualified for free and reduced lunch, although we frequently went without meals. And so perhaps that's another area that we can look at expanding eligibility. And maybe using like income-based solutions rather than relying on the free reduced lunch programs to grab everybody that may otherwise qualify, because not everybody, whether it be pride or access for applying for that or just time or bandwidth, there's any number of reasons why folks may not qualify but still may otherwise be in need and qualify based on income rather than just that program, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so you're looking at 5C income. And so we go by the Department of Social and Health Services requirements for free and reduced lunch currently. And the way this came about was we had one of our staff at the time in 2019 review lots of different, cities' eligibility criteria. And that's what we came up with, but certainly, again, open to feedback, so. So I can, so let me, yep. And Commissioner, I'll come back and just make sure I have clarification on your question as we go through. But yeah, so if you want to go to the updated one, it's attachment 3. Yeah. Yep. And so the purpose is listed there. It's the same reasons I stated earlier, so I won't read those again. And we have a policy statement, kind of the reason that we have it. We want to provide equity and accessibility to the programs that charge fees for participation. We've got a couple of definitions in there. And then, as we pointed out earlier, we have 2 different kinds of scholarship funds. We have the annual scholarship program. This is roughly based on 1% of program registration fees. And so the city council had decided they wanted to provide roughly 1% in scholarships to the community. And then we have the restricted scholarship donation funds. A good example is Park Foundation of Thurston County. That's the Parks, Arts, Recreation, and Culture. And they have been great at seeking, grants and donations for scholarships and passing those over to us, which is really great. They do it for other cities as well. So the eligibility. The first one, so we have our programs run by the trimester now. We used to be quarterly, but now winter, spring is together as one trimester. And so residents may request financial assistance every trimester. 5B, residency verification of residency within the city limits or within North Thurston Public Schools boundary. So they don't have the same boundary. So we make sure that either one can apply, but it must be submitted with the application. Accepted forms are a North Thurston Public Schools document or identification or a utility bill. In the absence of a permanent address, a referral may be submitted in lieu of residency documents. So that's section 7, which we'll get to, and this is a new section that we haven't had before. And then regarding income, as I stated earlier, we go by the DSHS requirements for free and reduced lunch. And verification of income is required by one of the following: a copy of last year's tax return, documentation from North Thurston Public Schools verifying free and reduced lunch, or an NTPS benefits letter. And then in lieu of, so to Commissioner's point, in lieu of income verification documents, a detailed letter explaining the financial need would be accepted. And the letter would just need to address why one of the other 3 options is not available as verification. So Commissioner, is it Hedgewood? Does that
Correct, yeah.
answer your question?
It does, yes, thank you.
Okay. And then eligibility under D, it'll be established each calendar year by the families. Beginning December 1st, applications will be accepted for the next year. But then applications for specific programs and classes need to be submitted each trimester. So if a family wanted to just go ahead and get set up for the year, they could just do it all at once. Or let's say a family wanted to just apply in the fall for a specific program for their child, they could set up eligibility at that time and also apply at the same time. So there's a lot of flexibility there.
When they apply, is that for the family? I mean, if they have 2 kids or they have 6 kids? Or is it per kid?
So so when they fill out the, so they can establish the income and the residence for the whole family, for the whole household. But when they go to apply for a program, it needs to be for a specific child for a specific program.
And then they're allowed certain amount. And then another child in that same family could,
It's
So
per,
let's
it's on
get
a
into
per
it.
household rate. So there's a limit per household. It's $400 per calendar year per household. But we go, because trimesters, it's $200 as a limit for winter, spring. It's 100 for summer and 100 for fall, which brings to 400 for the year.
so it's a particular kid, but if the program costs, $50 and then you have to, that household has to have 2 applications for in order to spend both.
So
Just trying
we
to
give them the,
understand how more than 1 kid in a
Yep.
family could be
Yep,
serviced.
and we'll actually get to that section
Oh, okay.
here shortly.
All right.
If you don't mind
No,
pausing
fine,
and then
fine.
we'll come back. Make sure all the questions are answered. So the procedure under number 6, the executive assistant or designee will review the applications as received to ensure all the requirements have been met for income and residency. We have deadlines for the applications for each trimester programs that I was alluding to earlier. This is where I would propose that C goes after A. Also, I'll skip to that one. Applications that satisfy income and residency requirements. They're considered in the order of the date and the time that they're received. We do give preference, although we haven't had this problem because we haven't been allocating as many scholarships as we think that we can, but if a family's already gotten one for one trimester, then another family would get one for the next trimester unless there were no other applicants, and then they would be considered. But decisions regarding scholarship awards should be made within 5 business days after receipt of the application, so we do process them fairly quickly. And then so here we go with your questions. If a household has already been awarded funding that calendar year, other households will take priority. I just mentioned that. The next one, every awarded household would receive a 200 credit. That's for the winter, spring, and 100, as Sarah pointed out, for summer or fall. And then any unused funds would remain on that household account for the rest of the year. So it could then be used. They don't have to submit another application, is that
No,
correct? Just to
it'll
use it
just-
once it gets onto their account.
It sits, so when I go to apply it to their account, I apply it almost like use it like a credit on their account. And then I set it to expire at the end of the year. So it'll just sit in their account and they could feasibly apply for all of the semester, all of the trimesters, and then just wait till fall to use all of those funds at once if they want. If they've applied every single trimester and received funding. So it will roll over on their account every trimester, but it expires on December 31st of that calendar year.
But we wouldn't allow refunds, so it basically, yeah, it just would expire at the end of the year and no refunds could be requested for that. Like we said, a household can apply for multiple trimesters if there's funds still available. But really, one of the goals is to reach as many households as possible. So we do have that $400 limit per year. And now I'll skip back to, I think next B should come next, which is the executive assistant or designee will provide approvals to our department assistant staff, and they're the ones who actually would put the credits onto the account. And then what we do is in D, funds are assigned to the eligible recipients first from that annual scholarship program fund that we mentioned. The one that expires for us at the end of the year. But we don't want to exceed 33% of the total funds each trimester because we want to just make sure that it's spread out throughout the year. Again, so far we haven't had that problem.
But it'd be
That challenge.
100, we hope to spend 100% of it in the whole year.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
correct,
yeah.
for the annual scholarship fund, right?
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And then if there isn't, but then we have those other funds to go to. Let's say we're at the 33% mark for the annual funds. We can go to review. The executive assistant would meet with me and then we would look at those other funds. But we just don't want to allocate more than 25% of those in a single year, just so that we don't completely deplete that fund. Again, we haven't had this challenge yet, but we're trying to look ahead on that. And we could change this, but until we have a really good pipeline for donations, it seems to be pretty stable right now. It's not guaranteed. So I know that there are some agencies that have, upwards of like $100,000 that they can pull from. So that's something that we're trying to establish, and we can get out there more and ask for donations, or our foundations that support us can also ask for donations for that sort of thing. So that's why we have, those percentages. And then the executive assistant or designee notifies the applicant of the denial or award amount based on the application timeline. And then provides an annual report to myself and the Parks Board. And, it's something that as we change, as the word gets out there more effectively, and we do have a better, more stable source, it's possible that more changes, further changes could be made to our policy. This is a new section, so the residency referral procedure. So this is number 7, in order to participate, a referral from the following sources may be submitted: NTPS homeless and foster care representative, a DCYF representative, a community youth services representative, or a nonprofit or shelter representative. And that goes back to B for the residency. So if there isn't a permanent address, we could take that referral. And then B for all day camp programs. So we define day camp as spanning 3 consecutive days or more. Every awarded household will receive the funds necessary to cover the cost of participation for up to 2 weeks per child. So this goes outside of our other policy and allows us to, again, cover the cost of participation for up to 2 weeks per child. And if funding allows, the opportunity for additional weeks may be made available as well. And that's what we were able to, what we were able to do with these other specialized funds that we got, that we won't have this coming year. And then for day camp programs, it falls along it has a different schedule. So February 1st, spring day camps, May 1st for summer day camps, September 1st for fall day camps, and December 1st for winter day camps. And then for all non-day camp programs, it's just the regular policy.
So I have a couple
Yes,
questions.
yes, please.
What is the,
Go ahead.
what is the connection of the relationship between Lacey Parks and Recreation Programs and the various sports programs for youth that happen in this community? For instance, right now I see signs for Thurston County Youth Soccer Association, signups or T-ball or track so if it's not City of Lacey sponsored activity, are those considered private activities?
So there's a variety. There are nonprofit associations, like the TCYSA that you mentioned. There is private recreation. We do have like Skyhawks, for example. We contract with them to provide some of the camps. And then there's the city operated programs. There's also YMCA operated programs. And so it just,
So none of
the
this
scholarship-
policy applies to anything other than the
City
city
of-
operated program.
City of Lacey, yes,
Okay.
because we do, and it does get confusing for people
That's what's
because
ringing a bell
we
in my
do
ear.
rent, yeah, the city rents fields and we also rent the school district fields
Right,
out as well.
right, I'm-
For the
I'm
school
aware,
district,
yeah.
to other organizations that
Right.
do run, like Shinquali is a
Quality
long
Foods,
time.
Right, right.
They're the main provider of youth soccer in
Right.
Lacey.
Oh, so they.
But we run like the youth T-ball, we run a youth T-ball program, we run
Mhm.
youth basketball ourselves, so, yeah.
We got a major football program around here,
Yeah.
started, fourth grade. And it just dawned on me when we're talking about need and those families that cannot afford those fees, it doesn't even touch upon the equipment they need. My 3 kids were active year round. You went from soccer shoes and shin guards to baseball shoes and so it's one thing to get a scholarship to cover the registration fee of something. It's another thing, if you've got multiple kids in a family, to keep them equipped, so that they can participate. So it just dawned on me that we're talking about a small segment of activity in the community. And when we hear comments that kids, there's not enough activity for non-school, after school kind of things, it's a slew of stuff, but it costs, it adds up in a hurry. So the scholarship to register is just one of the expenses involved. But to have the equipment you need to participate can be another obstacle to families. So those children are left out. Those children are left out. And so it just dawned on me that we're talking about a small segment of activities and children and families and that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
just, maybe I'm the only one that the light
Yeah.
bulb was slow going off on.
And I do know that some of those organizations have scholarship programs of their own. So if it is whatever organization is running the particular activity, families could reach out and see if there's scholarship programs for those as well. Maybe an equipment swap. I hear what you're saying though,
Yeah.
equipment swaps would potentially be
No.
a great
Your
idea,
shoes only
meetups and,
last you for 1 year.
yep, and then you. Everybody
know
comes
it's not
and they
really a-
exchange for a new size, right?
Remember TCYFL, BHJFL, those are all, I don't think they're sponsored by the city, but they are like the most common, football and cheerleading leagues that happen. There'll be about like 500 kids that are participating. So I kind of see that perspective where there's a lot going on in the city that isn't necessarily sponsored by the city. And I imagine that sometimes parents may be looking at the cheapest option, and sometimes I worry at least that might not be with the city, sponsored by the city. They might say, oh, well, the Lacey football team is very expensive, so we're gonna go over to BHJFL. But now all the people who really need a scholarship and went over to BHJFL didn't get the opportunity because the Lacey Parks was just too expensive to begin with, so.
Well, I just toss it out as we're looking at the policy of which eligibility and all that stuff kicks in. And when we look at, you know, submitting your income tax from last year, and it sounds awfully complicated for families that need it, you know. So in analyzing why the response to what's there is inadequate for the amount available, eligibility criteria might have something to do with it. Okay.
So I have two things. One, so I call in, say, my son wants to participate in soccer. Help me. Will you then walk them through the application, help them? You will provide that assistance to someone?
Yes, I've gotten calls like that before.
Okay.
And when they've had their computer in front of them, I just pull up the website up and I go through step by step with folks and help them fill it out. I was just going back and forth with someone about getting her financial documents in a different way. She couldn't get them uploaded to the site, so I just gave her my email and had her send them to me directly. But I try to be as accommodating as I can and actually read through people's comments when they send the scholarship applications and reach out to folks who may have forgotten something. Or try and get in touch with anyone that seems like they have a question.
Good. And do you all have the ability to say, make a request of the program directors for, say, each sport to say, at the end of your season, can you send a note to the parents asking for donation of athletic gear? You know, my grandson wears size 10 one season. Next year he wears a size 11. And, you know, for $150 pair of cleats, they're gonna be thrown in a closet. If a request was made at the end, will you donate? But these kids are growing, and you donate, you know, and say that program for soccer collects donations. So now the kids who have those challenges that may say, oh, I wear size 10, they go, look, yep, size 10, those types of things. Something to consider.
And warehouse them, and then once a season, say it's time to come and get this equipment if you need it. That would be really cool.
You know, hand-me-downs were part of my life, so.
Same.
Probably a lot of parents that have kids that just like stopped a different sport, like, well, I'm gonna donate these cleats, I might as well donate all these other things too, so like.
Yes.
Yeah, I could see potentially like some type of a swap.
I love it.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that we could house it, like take in the items.
So whoever runs the soccer league,
Oh, like
maybe they-
Shinkoli.
you know, or whoever runs the softball league, whatever, could, you know, potentially do something like that.
Or even donating them to the schools from the Lacey Parks Board. And that could even help you guys to begin to collaborate a little bit more with the school district. As somebody who participated in the most expensive sport in the entire high school, I can say that I had a lot of support from the school to do cheerleading. But towards the end, I just had like 10 pairs of shoes that just ended up going in the garbage, right? Because it was like, I don't have much to do with them. And, you know, the coach would have been like, you know, forget you, I don't want your shoes. So to have an opportunity like that, to be like, hey, here's these shoes that I have worn 3 times, but they're, like you said, like $200 shoes that, you know, I'm not going to wear these out or, you know, to the mall or to the store. You know, I'm never going to wear them again, but that would be a nice place for them to be. So, because there's some that just, you know, stay in the box, or, you know, I imagine there are wealthy families that have an abundance of cleats that could just be handed over, especially in the family with brothers as well. I know there are buckets of cleats that, you know, just one size to another every year that could be handed off to somebody who's still that size. So that's a really great idea.
Mr. Jackson, to go back to one of the points that you brought up of, you know, the eligibility criteria and potential barriers that might still exist. I think that's one of the things that, you know, they've looked to expand with this procedure, and then also recognizing that they're going to continue to track into the future to see where other opportunities might exist. And certainly, you know, if they're finding, you know, that funding is not being used would be coming and probably seeking more recommendations and looking for other ways to continue to remove barriers to access.
Yeah, one of the things we really want to do this year too is send out a survey to anyone that did receive a scholarship and didn't use their funds and ask them what the barrier was. Because another thing that came up was transportation and how close it is to the location of these activities. So if we can get more solid feedback on that from folks that were given a scholarship, but they never used the money, that would help us identify what could be barriers for other folks who didn't even apply. So.
I have one other question. I don't know in the cover, but in your analysis, did you pull any information on ethnicity or gender for those who received the scholarships?
We did not. It's just because we have very limited demographic information available when we have people sign up for scholarships. We have gone back and forth about whether or not that would be something we should add, but it could be seen as a deterrent for folks. So we weren't sure. We were trying to brainstorm more ideas on how to maybe capture that information differently in a way that people don't feel threatened, especially folks who may be undocumented. They may not want to give that information. So we're trying to be mindful of as many folks as we can, while also trying to see our demographic rates too, but it's a difficult problem to solve.
Okay.
And then if, you're able to use more and more of the scholarships, and then you could go back to the city and say, let's have 2% of the.
That's a great
If you
idea.
maybe put a disclaimer that clarified that the information that will be provided in the application is confidential. That might make people who are undocumented feel more comfortable in that aspect. Also, a note or regard to let people know that whatever race that you identify with or citizenship status that you identify with will not affect your, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're not gonna be like, oh, you're not a citizen, so we're not gonna give you this, or you are not a citizen, so we are gonna give you this. It's not really gonna make a difference in that aspect highly. It's just to, it's for you guys' own rates to, figure out what audience you guys are reaching.
Yeah, that could be on the table. And one thing we are doing as well, you also just reminded me, this year, we're also having some of our folks translate the scholarship documents and scholarship applications and everything into the 5 major languages in the area. So hopefully that will also help. That's something we haven't done in the past, but we've arranged to get that done once the new policy is ratified.
Thank you.
Anything else? Did you get from us what you need as far as feedback, recommendations, input?
I think so.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's helpful.
Want more?
Just got really.
We'll see you again.
Yes, we'll see you again soon, but I think, did you want to ask if there's any questions for me before I leave? for the
Sure.
next topic?
Yeah, so, I know a lot of questions came up and I know Commissioner Jackson already brought some up from the Black and African American Community Forum related to Parks and Recreation. And so while we have the expert in-house, I was gonna see if there were any additional questions. If anybody in the commission would like to follow up with Jen.
One of the things they did point out that someone said, oh, wow, these parks are great. And well, there's one every block. I'm like, well, that's
Yeah,
a stretch. But they did comment on, the parks and the availability of the parks.
Oh, good.
But the one thing was, after school activities for kids needing more variety of those. So that's something, communications will help on some of that, saying, somehow put it out, here are the programs that we have as information, like I'm big on information booths and things of that sort at events and activities, sharing information, just feeding this information to the community, and then taking feedback and looking where we can add or grow or partner. Partnering is key. And we'll probably get into it, but one thing the pastor asked was, what can we as, churches, religious organizations and community do to provide after-school programs? What can they do collectively? And there was another minister there,
The imam.
the imam, he talked about, so there are resources out there. If we partner, reach out, we could probably grow a great collaboration and increase some of these activities.
Yeah, we are very big on partnering. We, you know, the city obviously can't do everything, so we do partner quite a bit. And one of the things for after schools time specifically, the Boys and Girls Club has really taken the lead in Lacey for those types of activities. They have a location off of Carpenter Road and they're also in the RMAC, the Raj. It used to be the Bally's School District building that has the new gym inside of it on Slater Kinney.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
by
it's
Northhurst.
adjacent to Northwest High School. But that doesn't mean that there isn't still a need. And so, yeah, it would be good to hear what people are looking for and consider ways to partner.
I think, you know, everybody, lots of people use the parks. And I noticed that there's so many and that they're so great. And I, again, think that bulletin board that in every park that has every kind of information that the city had.
You guys have any indoor recreational facilities that you guys sponsor or have?
You know, we partner with the school district quite a bit, so those are the main facilities that we use. We have a Lacey Community Center, which we do have some community classes there, but we do have a lot of rentals as well.
Yeah, okay, because I was thinking about that for like youth nights, youth noons, afternoons, I don't know, after schools, and community forums as well.
Anything else, Commissioner Haygood? Yeah. Anything?
And senior nights, not gonna forget about seniors.
Nope, that's it.
Chair Brown, if I could for a second, you know, during the forum, one of the things that I heard a question that came up about was about specifically representation in events and event planning. So could you tell us a little bit about kind of what the process is right now and just give some insight on how Lacey Culture, our Parks Culture and Recreation picks its programming for the summer?
Yeah, so you're talking specifically about like performers and movies and those types of things, and then engagement and outreach for those. Yeah, so we have, you know, event staff that put together, they get proposals for people who want to perform at our different events. And just looking at some notes from our supervisor. She said that, so she'll get proposals in that reach out to her to be part of like an event series or a particular event. But then she does look to have a variety of music styles. So last year we had an Irish rock band, a mariachi band, and a Colombian band. And then for the movies, she said it's a little more challenging with movies because we're limited to what's available that we can get licensed for to show the public. We actually pay for the license. And then it has to be appropriate as well. So that's another layer of screening that happens. But she did mention that she put out a vote on Facebook for the movies. And then she said for outreach to find out what people want as far as performances, she'll do surveys at events too. So for example, at Cultural Celebration, she did a survey to reach out and find out what people want to see. For this year's shows, they're already booked. There's Japanese taiko drumming, Zydeco, I'm not sure what it is. And the Brazil Project. So those are a few of the diverse shows that she highlighted. But again, we're open to thoughts, ideas. I know that Facebook reaches a certain audience. So, you know, maybe we could do more outreach with, as we were talking earlier, to the different community groups in a different way or on site at the parks, etc., to find out what people want to see up there on the stage.
I know one of the comments that was made at the forum was, this one lady was saying that, when her kids were young, she'd take them to the movies in the park. But, rarely came across a movie where any Black folks showed up or looked like her and her kids and just stopped going. You know, that kind of thing, the cultural relevance, to the activities that are going on. That's a element as we talk about equity, inclusion. We've got to think in terms of who's in the community now that didn't used to be here. That we have to have additional considerations when talking about what will attract different groups to different activities. That's not an easy thing, but it takes intentionality and being deliberate about it. Yeah.
And then the value of cultural sharing like that, so in our public spaces is great.
Anything else?
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
you.
Yeah, we'll see you soon.
Yeah, we'll see you guys for sure.
With us.
See you next month, right?
Our next business item B is cultural celebration review.
Sure, I share the screen for everyone. All right, I'm Sadie. I got to meet some of you. I'm the new management analyst, and I'm here to talk to you all about the cultural celebration this year. So this year's celebration was held on March 4th. The city hosted the Lacey Cultural Celebration, and we had an estimated 2,500 visitors at the event this year, which is a big deal. So at the event, attendees were able to experience different traditions, cultures, watch some dances, see art from different cultures, got to taste some exotic flavors from all of our different food vendors, and then really learn a lot more about cultural customs through the variety of displays and activities that were hosted at the cultural celebration. This year, the Commission on Equity did host a booth. And at this booth, what they did is we had an interactive activity that you guys hosted where you asked for feedback on how can we create a more welcoming community? What concerns do you have about racism and inequity in the community? And how can we increase participation from underrepresented community members? This booth received 75 unique responses to this activity, which I think is a great number of responses. And I did want to let you know, commissioners, you do have access to every piece of feedback we received within your agenda packets. We're only going to kind of go over the highlights today, but you do have access to all of that information. The key takeaways here, and the number one thing that you will see that was trending in the feedback was more events. The community really would like to see more events. They would like to have greater accessibility at these events, more education, and an overall cleaner community. Again, events, you will see, we got a lot of great feedback on this and what people want to see. We got some great recommendations from things from a summer farmers market to trail and hiking days, music, a stand-up comedy night, community chorus, and just more overall opportunities for communities to interact and talk. I know earlier we kind of touched that the city does sponsor movies and music at Hunnemer Park in the summer. So I think hearing that those are things our community members want to see gives us a great opportunity to increase the notification we give about those events. We also received feedback that community members would like to see more accessibility at our events. So this includes community connectivity, increasing accessibility for those with disabilities. And then we received a few comments about transportation for seniors and potentially collaborating with transfer to events. One thing that was different at this year's cultural celebration was a designated room for sensory recovery. I know we've had sensory recovery options in the past. This year they had a full separate room. That room received over 200 visitors during the event. And so in that room, visitors had the option to use noise canceling headphones and different sensory tools to just kind of de-stimulate and rest and recover, and then return to the event to enjoy the rest of the activities that were provided.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And
Take a
then,
nap. No, I should
Yeah, it
go
was,
take a
when you
nap.
walked in, it was to the right, that whole section was.
yeah, a whole separate dark room where you could relax. And the other piece of information we noted in the feedback was that people wanted to see more education. So this included education on racism, increased implicit bias training, and more awareness about existing services that the city offers. The final piece of information that we noticed was mentioned a lot was a cleaner community. So people were wanting to see more community cleanup days and maybe opportunities to help pick up trash. I know currently the city does have a volunteer cleanup program, so this is giving us great feedback that maybe we need to advertise those opportunities some more as well. With that, I wanted to turn it over to you commissioners who were at the event and got to see different people and experience the event, to see if you had heard any feedback or had any more input regarding the event.
Well, I think you captured a lot of the key items that were covered. I do have a question regarding, well, one, do you have a formalized adopt a street program?
Yeah, Chair Brown, we have an Adopt a Street program, we have an Adopt a Trail program, and as Sadie just mentioned, this year, and actually at the beginning of, the end of last year, we started just a general volunteer cleanup program as well. So with the Adopt a Streets and the Adopt a Trails, you are committed for a period of time, and I believe it's a period of 2 years. The volunteer program is structured a little bit differently.
Okay. And the other thing, what possibilities are there for us, opportunities, transportation for seniors and others to various events? You know, I would have loved to seen a bus show up with the citizens from the Senior Citizen Center at the cultural celebration. What opportunities are there to do something transportation wise?
Sure, Brown, I think that's the second time, if not the third time, we've heard, hey, we want increased transportation access, especially, from older adults in the community. And so I certainly think that'll be a great conversation to have with Jen, and then also the director of senior services for the South Sound, to see if there is some sort of collaboration or partnership we might not be able to do if there isn't already some degree out there. So we'll certainly be reaching out to Brian of senior services for the South Sound to have that conversation.
Yeah, I see the dollar lift buses, but what else is there, I guess?
And
is
many
the
of the
question.
larger facility communities have their own little bus.
Vans.
If the vans, yeah, if they were encouraged or had the right information about when and might work.
That's a great idea for us to reach out to them. Just as you mentioned, a lot of private facilities do have private transportation options, and maybe they're just not aware of our events, or that we have accessible activities for the residents to participate in. So kind of building those relationships
With
may help
their
as well.
activity directors.
Absolutely, yeah.
I had one, I wasn't able to go this year, but I had one comment on the very beginning of your slides, talked about exotic flavors. And I think that's a little problematic. It may be, something is foreign to me. I might think that's exotic, but for everybody who makes their own dishes, that's not exotic. It's just familiar, good food.
That is an excellent point. Thank you for that feedback.
As part of the commission, I attended my first cultural celebration last year. And I've lived in this community 52 years. And I had to say, why haven't I ever gone before? I'm about a fourth of a mile from where I live to St. Martin's. And it never interested me before, would never, you know. And I was really asking myself those kinds of questions, and even going as a commissioner and trying to walk around and see the different booths and, you know, and I don't know the answer or the reason, but a lack of Black presence in any of the entertainers, any of those stage things that would make me, if, you know, so-and-so gonna be at the cultural celebration, they're gonna be on it too, you know, that would make me want. So I don't know. I don't know. So the inclusion part for at least the Black community, for whatever reason, maybe they're invited and never come, I don't know. But that was my observation. See, how can this be the 40th some cultural celebration? And I've never attended, never gone a quarter of a mile down the street. It hadn't dawned on me that had happened all that time. And I had no interest, no draw, no nothing that made me want to go. Or my kids grew up, never took them to the cultural fair. And I don't know the reason why, other than I didn't know what was happening until I'm going down the street and I see the reader board and all the cars. And, well, what's going on in St. Martin's today? You know, oh. And so that's just a personal reflection. And I don't know if it's an individual reflection or if it's a reflection of at least the Black or African-American community. I don't know, but I thought that was the oddest thing for me.
I was curious how do you guys go about deciding which vendors, which performers, and which booths you guys will be, or I don't know if it's decided by you or if you know at all, but I was just curious how you guys go about making that decision, who's performing, who's gonna have booths, things like that. Is it just strictly signups, or do you guys do outreach, or?
Commissioner Blackburn, that is a great question. And unfortunately, Jen has left. Jen would be the expert. Her staff oversees that process. But what I can tell you from what I've seen, and certainly we'll have Jen come back and maybe provide, you know, future update on just, you know, kind of the engagement and outreach for events in a little bit more detail. But there is a vendor application and all vendors have to fill that out, whether you are there for, say, food or you're there for just information. And then there's also a performer application as well. So you know, I think bringing Jen and her team, Jeanette Seiler, organizes this event as well as the parks, movies and musics, and getting a little bit more perspective on that might be really helpful.
Yeah, because like Ms. Thumma was saying, or Commissioner Jackson.
That was okay.
Like she was saying about, you know, why is it that what are we lacking that is drawing the Black or African community to the cultural center or to the cultural
Celebration.
Thank you. Words are difficult today for some reason. But yeah, she was saying that there's just a lack of interest, something that's driving us to be there. So I was curious if it was that you guys were doing outreach or if it was through an application process. And so it just appears that not a lot of Black or African American performers or vendors either know or are applying for the celebration. And I'm curious as to if it's kind of a similar aspect to our forum where when we had it here, the audience looked about how the audience looks now. It was about like 2 people. And then when we had our our forum at the New Life Baptist Church, we had an abundance or just a lot more of Black or African community members that were comfortable to be present. And that all could have been depending on the area that we decided to be, right? So I feel like that might be the reason why we're lacking African or African Americans like involved in the celebration is just like a matter of comfort. Am I accepted? Am I welcome? Is this going to be a space that really suits me where the audience will be impressed with my work? So I feel like maybe an advance in outreach, like for example, school Black student unions, all of them have either step clubs or choirs or poets that would be more than interested in speaking at these events, or even local any sort of youth group or church, just reaching out because like there's a word that you used earlier that was really powerful, but it was I don't remember exactly what it is, but the definition was to be very intentful with what you do, right? So if we're having a multicultural celebration, like, okay, we really need at least 5 African-American performers here. What are we going to do outreach in the community to make sure that we have the cultural relevance that we need at this event, right? If that's not coming through, right, we need at least 3 of these members to represent this area of our community and this area of our community and this area of our community, rather than just leaving it at an application that might provide us with a little bit more community involvement.
Thank you. Commissioners, this is really good feedback, and like I said, I think it'd be worthwhile bringing back Jen and Jeanette for some further conversation and dialogue on.
And did we have a question online, Commissioner?
Yes, I was going to tell Commissioner Blackburn, I had actually asked that question of Jen, I think a year ago whenever this came up, and the answer was effectively just whoever reaches out. They're not specifically seeking out or doing any of the other, I mean, again, the event's been going on for 40, 50 years, and those that are interested know about it and they apply and they seem to get a pretty full lineup. So I guess there's not a lot of effort focused on specific outreach for performers, but perhaps that's something that we can address with Parks, Culture, and Recreation. But that was the answer that I received, like I said, probably a year ago, I think, whenever I asked that or a very similar question on what efforts they have towards recruitment for the event. And it's basically just people that apply was the answer I got.
Yeah, that's what I figured as well, and I felt like that could have been the problem as well. So we kind of were on the same page. So that's why I responded with community outreach and just being very intentful about the cultural relevance that we are displaying in our events and ensuring that we have a little piece of everybody and a little piece of the community involved in every area.
100%.
Applications.
I use the words deliberate and intentional.
Here she goes again.
Anything else? Other questions? Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to meet all of you tonight.
Great first meeting.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now that you're a part of, it won't be as easy next time.
Okay, we went on, I'll
We'll
keep
have
that.
tough questions for you
We'll
next
have
time.
tough answers. Thank you so much.
You. All right. So the next business item is the Black and African American Community Forum Review. You have me, so I'll just open up the discussion. We've seen the minutes, we've seen the feedback from the event. I just want to say that I thought it was a successful event, well attended. It goes to the power of taking those types of forums to the community versus asking them to come here. So more people, more comfortable being in a familiar environment, and they're more comfortable asking questions and participating. And I think that was one of the greatest successes of the event. And I was happy to see the city manager there, the deputy police chief, and some others there. We did not have any council members present at the event. But overall, I think the goal we set out was accomplished. We provided information. I think that's something I really wanted us to do, was provide that education piece, the background on the commission, how we were formulated, what we were charged to do, and what we have been doing since our inception, right into 2-year mark now. So and so then the community had a better feel for who we are, why we exist, and some of the things that we're doing and where we can and cannot impact, the decisions that are made here at the city. And I think because we received so much feedback, I think now that we're challenged to show some results or some feedback from some of those things that were highlighted during the event. And I found the biggest challenge for the event was, the line of questioning regarding the North Thurston Public School District. That is one of, I guess our greatest challenge is to be able to address the school district and their actions, their processes, and some of their policies. That to me is something that feel like we have a good grasp on, and I'm not sure how we can approach that to work with the school district more effectively. So with that, Commissioner Jackson, would you like to add feedback?
I would just add to your comments and agree with you that it was a tremendously successful evening for us. We were trying to provide for a community forum event that people felt comfortable, it felt accessible, familiar, and we asked them, for their thoughts, and we had good interaction. And the presentation that helped them better understand the role and responsibility of this Equity Commission, I think was very useful. Because we talk about being commissioners, and but what do y'all do?
Yeah.
And so that was a very good part of that presentation, I thought. I was disappointed in the lack of any city council members. There were no school officials, no school board members, no school administrators. There were a number of district employees. And we didn't ask people to come and share with us their concerns or issues limited to the city. We didn't limit it to the city. So of course, schools were going to come up. People talked about healthcare access, talked about employment, talked about jobs, all of that came up. And it's unfortunate that more elected people weren't there to hear what the Black citizens of Lacey had to say about living in the city of Lacey and feeling included. So I was disappointed from that point of view. And another reason why I wanted to see the attachment to the minutes so that folk can see what the concerns were, what the questions were, what the issues were that came up. And I said I would come back to the written comments that were sent to the city. We put a lot of effort in trying to find a place that met all that criteria of comfort and accessibility and whatever. And the fact that it was held at New Life Baptist Church in an adjacent church facility, not in the sanctuary. And for the record, I'm saying this for the record, it was not a religious gathering. It was not a secular gathering. It was, it had none of those implications. And so the letters that went to the city, and one in particular, demanded that the city change the venue for that. I'm glad to see the city. I didn't read that until the Wednesday after the forum, thank goodness. So I was glad to see the city didn't react to that. But we can't have a community. I don't know where the other groups will have their forums, what facilities they'll choose to have them in. But we know from our cultural perspective as Black folk, where people are comfortable assembling and being comfortable enough to interact. So that's what led to the success. And so I was disappointed to see that reaction to the fact that it was held at New Life Baptist Church. I couldn't tell you who was sitting in that audience that was gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual, asexual, whatever, and then Black folk are not a monolithic people. We aren't all Baptists, we're Methodist, Episcopalian, Jehovah's Witness, Seventh-day Adventist, Muslim, Catholic. And so I was just disappointed in how the energy somebody took into taking exception to that venue and the location that was used for the Black Community Forum. So I applaud the city for I just said, thank you, Lord, you didn't let me see this letter to Wednesday. So I could really just put my energy into trying to help make Tuesday night be the success that it was. But I thought it was small of whoever took the time to write those letters. Because that, that had nothing to do with it at all. It was all about a venue that worked out extremely well and met all of our criteria. So I just wanted to say that for the record. But it was a good event. We got good information, a number of things that came up that opened up a lot of a future dialogue. And as other groups hold their forums, what are those questions? What are those concerns, And I was pleased to see the full commission present.
Yeah.
And when the other forums take place, we should all be there to hear those issues and concerns because we're about the community.
Right.
This diverse community that makes up the city of Lacey and the surrounding area. So we stepped out there front as the first of the forums to take place. And I couldn't have been more pleased. Even the weather agreed. So that's just all I wanted to say about that. Thank you.
I had I just have a comment. When I was thinking about not going, because, and this might, I don't know, I can't speak for any of the city council or any of the people in the school district, but as a white person, I wasn't sure. I wanted it to be a super safe, no conflict, no idea of judgment. I just wanted to be your space. And I just, and when I said that to you, you said, Cliff, she's not coming. She better come. And so.
I said, there are Black LGBT community people here. All y'all not white.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just, that just might be a little piece of something, but I think in that how it developed, the first part of it that was explaining about just really giving them a sense of what the commission does, has done, is going to do. I think that really just eased people's mind, like these people are going to listen when I talk, and then there was just a lot of talk. I think the comments from the public is just a personal hurt. It's a personal hurt that it felt, they must have felt like this was a time to bring it out. And I agree with you that the venue was the best place, could have been the best place for the Black community to be. And I was happy to be there.
For whatever reason, we attracted a fair number of whites who came and was interested in what we had to say. So everybody was welcome.
And Vice Chair Clay, and this also is a point that Commissioner Jackson brought up of, there weren't city council members present. And I just want to highlight that this is an advisory board of the council. And so they are allowing you all to also work independently to bring back information to the council. So I just want to make sure that there's awareness too, that, you are working for the council and that, what we hear and what we bring back in front of the city council is all part of that process.
Yeah. And maybe it will be important for us to say, everybody welcome, when we have our different forums.
I agree. When I posted, I tried to advertise all of our forums and events on my social media platforms. And I had a few people slide up like, I'm white, can I come? I'm white, can I come? And I just let them know, yeah, we would love to have you. So yeah, I feel like that would be a very beneficial disclaimer. To me as an African American, we are automatically, well, of course you're invited, right? But I guess some people do need that just to make sure, like, it's this event for me too. But the whole forum it brings me joy to see when there are an abundance of people from different races in the room, because that just shows that everybody who's not Black or African American in the room is really here to tackle any implicit bias or, subconscious opinions that they may be dealing with, or, any level of ignorance that they want to release themselves from. It just shows like an overall effort. Me and Miss Thummel were having a conversation about when my brother came out with his sexuality, and I joined the GSA the next day as a straight ally and led every assembly and every event that we had after that, just because I wanted to free myself of that ignorance, and I wanted to learn more, and I wanted to be a part of that change, because there were so many times where I was silent. I didn't really fully understand. And that's why I was silent. So it's very refreshing to see at an African American forum it's a diverse crowd, because everybody cares about the Black community. That's the whole point of the term Black Lives Matter, right? Is to make sure that a Black life doesn't just matter to the Black community, but to everybody in the community. So yeah, we needed a lot of people from different races, and especially our European American friends. I'd love to have you.
Allies.
Yes.
And family members,
Mhm.
to make it restrictive, we would be saying to some of our family members, you can't attend. So no, being, welcoming, community, and we saw that. And I was impressed with people from different organizations who were there to learn and to share with us. And so I learned, about several different organizations, some things they are offering in the community, some things they're doing in the community. So it was information sharing, as part of the meeting as well that, I appreciate it.
I wouldn't have learned about Ramadan. I wouldn't have learned about the LGBTQ community if we didn't have so many people there. We were talking about Ramadan at our Black community forum. Like, I learned so much about so many different cultures. I feel like that's the unity in it all. That's what's really important. So.
But for our forums, we're targeting a particular group. So that's what we're looking for, where we're holding that and who we're outreaching to. And then also everyone's welcome.
Yes, absolutely.
Anything else? Commissioner Hayden? I see Commissioner Stolberg has joined us.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I appreciate Commissioner Jackson's reiteration that this Black-led church is a pillar of the Black and African American community in Lacey, and I understand the importance of it in the Black community, specifically the local Black community. Referencing several of the public comments we got, including other Black and African American identifying folks from the community, about the possibility of the venue being problematic, not because it's church, but because of their explicitly anti-trans rhetoric. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to look at their website, but regarding the hostile language that they have posted on their website and their mission statement, myself as a queer person of color, even as a commissioner, I can't say that I wasn't hesitant on going in the first place. Obviously, I wanted to be there in solidarity, but historically, specifically Baptist churches have been the safest place for people like me. And I can't help but wonder how many other queer people of color and Black and African American identity people of color might have showed up, might have weighed in if the venue that we used was less hostile towards who they are as a person. And I think that that's probably something to consider in our future venue selection. And in considering including all of our target demographic.
Mr. Hedgewood, Commissioner Hedgewood.
Yeah.
Do you have because I was so curious about that. I really wanted to see what they were describing myself about the anti-trans information on the website.
Sure, I can quote it for you if you'd like.
Please.
So it's point 19, which is all the way at the bottom of their missions, what we believe in, values. But it quotes Genesis, saying that these two distinct complementary sexes together reflect the image and nature of God. And then it gives a Genesis reference. And then it says rejections of one's biological sex is a rejection of the image of God within that person. And then it says that we believe that God wonderfully and immutably creates each person as either male or female.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right. So that was something that was brought up by several community members of problematic, and of course, on the heels of the Chick-fil-A sponsorship that we had talked about also at these commission meetings. I wonder if perhaps we as a Commission on Equity in the city of Lacey and as a whole are maybe presenting the wrong image to the queer community that I know we don't intend to send, but both of these organizations being explicitly anti-LGBTQ friendly, I guess, it seems like that's something that we should be considering.
Well, that's why I made the point I made, that this was a facility attached to the church. It had nothing to do with the church, the doctrine of the church, the belief of the church. It was a ample location, venue, the size, free parking, accessibility, and almost anything we can set out to do in this community. There's going to be some reason that somebody's going to object to it. You know, I was pretty silent on that whole discussion on sponsorship. You know, what about some of those financial institutions that have been party to redlining and that kind of thing, abject to Black community members around here? It just goes into a whole area that supersedes, you know, the bottom line objective that we're trying to achieve. And that was the only point I was making, that the use of New Life Baptist Church facility as a venue had nothing to do with New Life Baptist Church as a religious organization. And like I said, I don't know who was sitting up in there and what persuasion they brought with them, but everybody who walked through their door was equally welcomed, and nobody prohibited based on nothing. And so for those who might have stayed away because of the choice of the venue, so be it. We can't do anything about that. So that's why I wanted to make that statement for the record, trying to be as sensitive and as aware as we can. But at the same time, you know, we have limited venues right here in the city of Lacey. And so I'm done.
And all of these things, the objections and the, you know, our intentions and everything, it just brings good dialogue. It just brings up issues that we can talk about.
Well, and commissioners, you know, as we've talked about before with, you know, hosting these community forums and continuing to do community engagement, the goal is to continue to have conversations, to have more forums, to have more dialogues, recognizing that one conversation is not going to be inclusive of all the perspectives in the community. And we certainly want to continue to reach out to the community, be a part of the community, and get more feedback to meet the goals that this advisory board was tasked with by the city council.
Stolberg.
Yeah, Commissioner Stolberg.
Yeah, not to change the subject because I think this is good conversation, but and Shannon, I'm sorry, I don't have my notes or the agenda pulled up right now, but I'm just wondering if we have, like, I know you said that we have some streamlined notes from the forum. And I'm wondering if we have like something like action items. So like there's, you know, specific things that were brought up that, you know, like our work with the school district. And I know that we've had the one meeting with the DEI representative from the school district. But I feel like there are certain things that we as a commission could follow up on, at least just to start conversations about the issues that are being brought up. And I don't anticipate that this is the first, you know, Black and African American community forum. I would think that we'd have multiple of these. And then if we do, and then people come back and ask, well, we voiced this as a concern, what have you as a commission done? And we're not tracking what our action items could be. I feel like things will fall through the cracks. So that makes sense, what I'm trying to say. Like, I feel like we should have like a to-do list after these forums.
So I think that's a great thing to talk about, Commissioner Stolberg. And if it pleases the commission, I'd actually like to take a review of the staff report so we can talk about some of the things that were discussed. And certainly I may have missed things as well. So I would welcome any additional comments to be added to the staff report. And then I think as Commissioner Stolberg just highlighted, taking and looking at it and thinking about what are some things that we can, start looking at, in the next short term, and then also kind of be more intentional and deliberate looking at also in the long term as well. So if it pleases the council, I'd like to walk through those comments.
Just another quick thing to add on before we move on to that. And I 100% agree, Commissioner Stolberg, on making some tangible efforts to act on everything that we heard in the meeting. That's something very important. It's something that the school district lacks. So let's learn from their mistakes. And then I just also wanted to reply to Commissioner Hedgewood's comment, which I really appreciated. And I just wanted to say that I feel like I don't think there was any necessarily ill intent behind using New Life Baptist Church as the venue. Speaking for the people that I didn't make that decision, but I know 100% for certain that there was no ill intent or to unattract anybody, but the goal was, and the thought behind it was, how can we attract the most African-American community members? Where can we do that? How can we attract the most African-American community members? I think that we were very successful with that. If there are any places in the community that you think might be more attracted to African-American community members from all spectrums, I would love to hear of that place, so that way maybe we could utilize them next time if they are more attractive to a wider audience of African-American community members. But I'm sure if we were to do our LGBT community forum at the GLSEN area downtown Olympia, there are some religious people that might not feel welcome at the GLSEN conference. Everybody's not necessarily comfortable in certain spaces. So I doubt the Catholics would come to our meeting if we had it at GLSEN, right? So if there are spaces where you feel like are kind of general that excite and welcome people of all perspectives, I highly recommend it forming the commission for our future meetings, because we love everybody.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I really appreciate Commissioner Jackson reiterating that the Black-led church is a pillar of the African and Black identifying community. And I completely understand, and also why myself and the other commissioners that don't identify as Black or African American kind of took a step back during the meeting and just listened. And I guess, like you were saying, Commissioner Blackburn, I think that perhaps finding even another Black-led church in the community that perhaps isn't promoting active, hostile, anti-trans rhetoric as their position and their mission statement doesn't seem like a high bar. I'm not familiar with all the Black-led churches in the region, as I'm not a religious person myself. Again, churches and religion in general has been rather hostile to queer people, especially queer people of color. But I think that that's a great conversation for whenever we start planning the next one and for considering new venues.
All right, well, just want to draw your attention that in the agenda packet for tonight, there is a staff report that provides a overview of the forum. And certainly, again, what I'd like to hear tonight is, if there are things that I missed that should be added to that, and then also some conversation like Commissioner Stolberg pointed out of things we might want to take a look at as a commission on the short term. And then, following up on what Commissioner Hedgewood just mentioned of, transitioning now to also thinking about the next forum, which will be held in May, June, focusing on the LGBTQI A plus community and where it might be, a good venue to host that forum coming up here. So let me share the screen here. So one thing I just want to make note of before we jump into this is that this is just a summarized background or overview, excuse me, of the feedback. None of the feedback as written is meant to be taken as, you know, a verbatim comment. And in fact, some of the comments were also pulled from the written comment provided and integrated into the general comments and then categorized. So it's not kind of like how it happened in the meeting, but more of themes on the same note. So I think the first thing, certainly that Chair Brown has already highlighted is just North Thurston Public Schools and, you know, talking about, you know, how the Commission on Equity, the City of Lacey, North Thurston Public Schools all interact with each other. There certainly were some questions on, you know, the involvement between the two bodies and, you know, Chair Brown, as you highlighted, you know, that they are two very different, distinct elected bodies, but that we are all part of this community and that we all need to be part of conversations moving forward. I did want to provide, though, for anybody who opened this up, the whole conversation that we had with Dr. Antonio Sandiford from North Thurston Public Schools. So that resource is available. You can click that hyperlink and they can listen to the entire meeting where we had Dr. Sandiford as well as Principal Allen from Pope John Paul talk a little bit about the equity efforts going on in their various school districts.
I have a question.
Yeah, absolutely.
So would this be attachment be the attachment that is attached again to our meeting minutes?
Correct.
Okay, okay. The term involved, if we could change it, that was kind of on my mind. Cause reading this from, I don't know, at least my perspective, it kind of seemed like, how are we collaborating with North Thurston Public Schools? How are we working with them? How are we involved together? If we could use a word that definitely highlights the separation, but also like, how are we collaborating? How are we helping? How are we you know, supporting North Thurston Public Schools? Actually, not the word supporting, but just something that indicates the fact that we're separate. Because to me, reading this, although it says two distinct elected governing bodies, something that it doesn't really seem like that from what this is saying. It seems like we're kind of like hyping up Mr. Sandiford, talking about how he's doing this great work about equity and how we talked about it in the meeting. If we could do something that even further kind of separates our commission from the public schools, I feel like that would be beneficial to anybody who sees that.
One of the other questions that came up was who manages resources for the school district. And again, just providing information that the school district is its own governing body, its own taxing district. And so most of its resources come from property taxes, which it collects and then decides how to use, you know, those funding revenue sources. I did want to highlight that there are times where the school district and the city collaborate, and Jen brought up an occasion earlier today in their presentation. We do have a joint agreement, for example, for use of facilities. So we can provide recreation programming as an example in their swimming pools, as well as basketball courts. So we do have an agreement, and there's also, you know, scholarship and after school programming that occurs. The question came up about what efforts are being done at North Thurston Public Schools, including North Thurston Public Schools elected bodies and advisory boards. And for this, I just wanted again to provide the information directly to North Thurston Public Schools and the contact information where individuals in the community could reach out and connect with the equity team or provide public comment to North Thurston Public Schools school board. There was also concerns about representation of school teachers in the community as well. Another theme that I heard a lot of comments expressed on was on our parks, culture, and recreation here in the city. And I know we've covered a couple of these when Jen was here. But one, to enhance representation at city-sponsored recreation events, including movies and concert series. To get more information about what types of youth engagement and recreation opportunities exist in the city. And then also expanding beyond celebrations and, for example, the cultural celebration and infuse diversity throughout the community. Another theme that came up was enhancing collaboration between government entities and other organizations. So the first bullet point here is really talking about regional efforts between the cities and the county. So having a joint meeting on equity with the cities of Olympia, Tumwater, and Thurston County, recognizing that community does not end at a city boundary or a county boundary, and that we need to take a look at this holistically and collectively. To enhance collaborations with various organizations in the community. So heard from several nonprofits and other members of the faith community about being collaborative on these issues as we work through them. And then continuing dialogue and collaboration with also community members. There was a discussion on land acknowledgements and how the city is going to use land acknowledgements in the future. And, clarified during the forum that this is something that we hope to integrate into our policy programs and events moving forward. And hopefully we'll have an update on that here shortly to give you all some more information. Another category was homelessness and how the community, the greater Thurston County community, could collectively help address issues like homelessness. There was a lot of conversation on healthcare access in the community. There were concerns raised about employment and pay disparities at healthcare organizations. There were concerns raised about disparities in representation in healthcare. And there was also concerns raised about disparities in healthcare services and access. An example was emergency room services or urgent care services.
Do you know, are there DEI reps at St. Pete's and the other medical service? I mean, maybe there are that we could connect with, or we could pull in with our others. I just, wonder how the commission could make a relationship with healthcare providers.
Somebody that we can bring into our meetings to discuss these kinds of things. And then also, I was gonna say, on the topic of healthcare at number 6, somebody brought up a great point in their meeting about how racism had been considered and declared a public health crisis for years. So it could be something like concerns were raised about addressing the public health crisis of racism, kind of highlighting that. So that way people are aware that it is a public health crisis and there's nothing being done.
Yeah, Commissioner Blackburn, we have another bullet point, but certainly we could, I think, combine those two. I think they fit
There's
well.
something like
into each
under
other.
number 6 that highlights that racism is a public health crisis and that there are concerns about that. I feel like something might be beneficial to add.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Commissioner Clay, to go back to your question about, DEI staff members for various health organizations, I don't have an answer for you tonight, but that's certainly something, when we're talking about actions, maybe at minimum, just sending them this copy of the staff report or, just say, hey, here's what we've heard, could be a start. And then looking to see if we might have, maybe a future dialogue or conversation.
On the issue under number 3, talking about holding regional efforts, we had a person at the forum representing the League of Women Voters. They are convening a county-wide discussion forum on April 26th, trying to bring all these DEI entities together. And I know, Cliff, you're going to be on the panel. The lady followed up with me for a number of things, but they see a lack of movement on the part of all these people with DEI things. So they, as a nonpartisan community, nonprofit organization, they are doing a convening to at least try and get a jump start on this subject of DEI countywide. And so I don't know what the particular agenda will look like for April 26th, but they were there to hear our discussion. And maybe the healthcare entities and employers and banks and all those folk, anybody with the DEI entity, they're trying to identify them to invite them to this countywide, they're calling it a panel, but I guess summit, forum, or whatever, I don't know. So something might come of that might answer some of these questions. The DEI person for Capital Medical Center or Providence St. Peter or you know, yeah, we might have a better clue after that event is held.
And Commissioner Jackson, that the League of Women Voters Equity Commission panel was on the director's report for later tonight, but since we're discussing
Sorry,
it.
go right
No,
ahead.
since we're discussing it right now, that saves me one item to have to talk about at the end of the meeting. So, you know, like Commissioner Jackson just mentioned, Commissioner Jackson and Chair Brown and myself will be part of this panel. And the idea is to get together all of the government bodies and DEI representatives for a conversation. And what I've heard from, I believe it was Carrie from the League of Women Voters, is that they're looking for, just to start, a brief presentation like the one Cliff gave earlier, so that we can all get perspectives of what's going on, you know, in various entities throughout Thurston County, and then to have a open question and answer session following that. But I think, you know, Chair Jackson, you bring up a good point of this maybe being a start, and then continuing these dialogues and conversations moving forward after that. And so that is on April 26th at 6 p.m. at the Olympia Center, and that's going to be in room 101 and 102. So I'll certainly send out some more information as we get closer to that date. Going back to some other things that we heard as part of the forum, just generally employment inequities. There were concerns raised about explicit and implicit bias in employment processes across the community. And as Commissioner Blackburn pointed out, racism as a public health emergency was brought up, and really the question of what is Thurston County doing since this declaration, and also what are the cities doing as well. Another thing that came up was comprehensive plan updates and engagement. So I know this body is aware that we are doing updates to our large comprehensive plans. These are your primary planning documents for the city. And so we are going to be starting that process with the idea of, you know, getting our updates 2025, 2026. And so we are certainly going to put together a participation plan, just like the Parks Department did. And we'll be hearing a little bit more from that from our Community Economic and Development Department here in a bit. But, you know, one of the questions came up is, what does outreach look like for those types of events? And how can people get involved in planning? For the Commission on Equity questions, so down to page 4 of the staff report, how could we create a more welcoming community? Some feedback that we heard was to encourage more multi-generational community efforts, to improve communication access and knowledge of events, expanding communication efforts and creating more culturally relevant communications. Developing a one-stop resource for community members to improve access to information on the community. It was expressed that this would be very helpful for new members of the community, including new military personnel. Enhancing information accessible at local chamber of commerce and other resource centers, for example, welcoming centers. That signage, flags, and other types of visualizations, in addition to certain businesses in the community, create an unwelcoming environment. Display diversity throughout the community. Create a pedestrian-friendly town center that helps enable community connectivity. And then moving to how can we increase participation from underrepresented community members. We heard host more events like this in the community, be inclusive, make sure that they're well planned and well organized. Go where people already are. Do not ask community members to come to government facilities. Increase marketing and outreach for events. Increase pamphlets on how to get connected. Increase outreach to community organizations. So for example, faith groups. Invite diverse voices to be involved in planning and community events. For what barriers have you seen or experienced in participating in decisions that impact the community? There was feedback on cultural barriers as a challenge. Dismissal of concerns of African-American students and women of color are rarely heard. Navigating government systems can be difficult. It can be hard to know how to get involved. Holistically consider youth activities, mental health, and law enforcement, and disparities in employment access in the community with explicit and implicit bias and other barriers in hiring processes. And then on the final question, did you experience any barriers to your participation today? It was expressed that the time of the event was a barrier for some people who had to work. So with that, I'd like to see if there were other things that you all heard that maybe I missed that we could integrate in here and make sure that we have a full account of the community forum.
Can I quickly use the bathroom before I miss this? Okay, do you know where it is?
Thank you so much. I'm sorry. I was looking, number 10, E, talking about signage, flags and other types of this way.
Oh, yeah, okay.
There's a gate there, you can't get through.
Exactly, that's why I was going that way, because it was over there.
It's just right out the door, you know. Signage, flags, and other types of visualization in addition to certain businesses in the community that create an unwelcoming environment. There was a question raised along the lines, doing that was, the city licensing procedure for certain kinds of businesses that are offensive to some people. And an example was made of a shop that manufactured guns and ammunition and, their slogan of Black Guns Matter, getting at the Black lives. So that little discussion came up along that was referring to that item E. The city's licensing procedure for certain offensive businesses in the community. As we're trying to just list what items came up.
Yeah, and the other piece having to do with, providing information to new community members, like a welcome center, something along those lines. I think that's very important. And I think that could come as a result of a collaboration with, say, JBLM, because of the military, and many of them moved to Lacey and come to Lacey, but having information there, doing in processing that they can access to say, oh, here's the city of Lacey, here's some demographics, here's some things, here's some neighborhoods, here's the school district, how links to the school district and other things that they can read on and get information. Families do that when they move, as we were getting ready to move, people decide which town to move to based on the schools in it. Where they're gonna go to Puyallup, Tacoma, Lakewood, Lacey, Olympic. They make those decisions based on that research. So us having that type of information available to them is important. In like a town center, where's downtown Lacey?
Right,
So
visitor
if
center. Is there even, do we even have a visitor center?
Well, and so that's a good question. So, and I think we should invite maybe the Chamber of Commerce to come and talk a little bit about the information and the visitor center that they currently have. And maybe we can let them know some of the comments we received and things that they might want to look into to help expand information access.
Yeah, and like many cities as you pass on the highway, it says information center is something along those lines on the highway or when your major exit into a town. And you go there, there's the building with all this information or something along those lines. That my understanding is that one exists, but where is it? How do you get to it? Those types of things. And another thought I had was maybe looking at commissioning small business or an organization who could develop a business
resource
directory, like an African-American directory or minority business
Well,
directory for the city.
we have one. We have a BIPOC, there is a BIPOC directory, but when somebody was speaking about that, I thought about the old Green Book. And that like every community, there could be, LGBTQ needed their own Green Book about where's queer owned business, where's it comfortable to go to? Obviously we shouldn't be talking about this in this day and age, but we still are. But there is, you look up BIPOC business directory, you'll find it. And I think Makita is part of that. So
So
it's
that's something we
quite,
need to pull forward.
Yeah.
That's something that should be shared widely in the
Mhm,
community again.
mhm, yeah,
Because I'm not aware of it, but
yeah.
it's just me.
So would Commissioner Vice Chair Clay is referencing is the South Sound BIPOC Business Directory, which Commissioner Hart is a part of.
Okay.
But that's just the business aspect of it.
True.
Another comment that was made at the forum was the need for a green book for Black folk coming to town that needed to know where to go, where not to go. You know, you're looking for culturally relevant products and food and culture and that kind of thing. So the green book idea did come up from a person.
Maybe there's something we review those books and look at what else, what's missing. How can we enhance it? You know, or if it's good, great. How do other organizations or businesses become a part of it? You know, be included, to be added to it, you know, and then how is it distributed? You know, is it done electronically or is it everybody gets a mailer once a year or something? You know, something along those lines to.
So Chair Brown, I think, as far as, again, start that conversation, it'd be good to invite, the Chamber of Commerce and other business groups, maybe for a conversation at a future Commission on Equity meeting to see what is out there and see what, and pass on this information as well, and then see what next steps we might be able to take.
How we could support
So they
them.
can craft it into whatever plan they're developing.
Yeah, yeah. We don't need to do everything. We can
At least know.
encourage them, yeah.
So is there anything else, any other comments to add? And I know, Commissioner Stolberg, I still have the, what's next, that I want to chat about, but I just want to make sure first, because I think just foundationally making sure we've got a good account, and then, taking some of this information and taking a look and seeing what might be some short-term steps we can take. And then, again, what might be some longer term steps we can take.
Yeah, and if they're display diversity throughout the community, I think that RAP program, once we do that, the utility RAP program is gonna, really be good for the community. And it was
And I have to say, many of these things are already in our work plan and we're already, aware of it, but it's just great to have a broader sense of the needs.
Well, that's a great deal of very good input from just one community forum.
Yeah.
Very good.
So commissioners, what I'd like to do with this information is maybe at our next meeting, come back with some kind of short-term actions and plans for getting some kind of community, other community members and entities involved for some of these conversations, and then also connecting with Parks, Culture and Recreation on scheduling, some more information on, again, our city sponsored events, vendors process for, places like the cultural celebration, performer process, just to get some more information in those conversations started. So Commissioner Stolberg, what I'd like to say is I'd like to come back with you all at the next meeting now that I've got some good direction here on the final staff report for some next steps.
So our next business item, number 5, commissioner reports. The Juneteenth planning update. We mentioned, I don't know if we reported out last month, but we are having our planning meetings, and the Fred U. Harris Lodge has shared some great information with the committee on some enhancements to the Juneteenth event this year. And it's going to be more exciting and a little bit different than before. They'll do the same basic, things of planning and having the food and those things. But in addition, the plan now is to have performance by an artist, a musician, who will bring his band and singers who will do 2 one-hour concerts during the event. And we also have a River Ridge dance team, step team that will be performing at the event. We have invited and received confirmation from General Brunson, the I-Corps commander, that he will be our keynote speaker for the day. Mayor was really happy to hear that at the council meeting, but he has agreed to be our keynote speaker, for the day. So there are some things, and also we'll have more information booths this year. Right now, we're looking at between, 8 and 10 information booths that we'll have this year to share more information about what's going on in the community, and what a variety of, organizations will be sharing that information. We're not gonna do vendors, we're gonna do information booths. We're gonna stick with that. And we,
Nonprofits,
huh?
nonprofits or
Well, it's a variety, some nonprofits and some others. We have reserved all 3 areas. What do you call those?
Shelters.
Shelters for the event
Wow.
this year, all 3. So we'll have more space to spread out and display these information booths and have more sharing. And we're thinking that the concerts and other things will keep people there to really enjoy themselves, throughout the day versus, having a presentation and eating and kind of mingling around. Now there'll be other activities to have people engaged and really get to network and interact with each other. So it's going to be an exciting event this year.
Is it still 12 to 4?
Yeah, there's still the time.
Okay.
Well, actually 11:30, they're going to start a half hour early.
11:30 to 4.
Okay, that's all I have on that. And at this time, Commissioner Clay had something she wanted to present to us.
Yeah, I just wanted, I was thinking about different reports, annual reports from different departments. And it would be, I'd like them to be sent automatically to the Commission on Equity, or an automatic notification that this report was out. I was thinking about the police annual report, the use of force report. I know in our plan, there are a lot of reports that we're going to review, but I just thought if they just came automatically for us to read now and even if when we change commission members, that it'll just spark our remembering our memory about it. I mean, I know all those things are available on the site, but if we forget, oh yeah. I don't know, is that a possibility?
Yeah, so Commissioner Clay, something we are working on in our public affairs department is creating kind of a every other week email that just provides some updates, including what the council is taking a look at. And that would be having links to those reports that you just mentioned, because those all go in front of the city council. And so you can sign up for notifications to receive emails on our website. And I can show you all just really quickly where you would find that. If you go to our city's website, which is cityoflacey.org. And you go to, so many things not always in the way, go to contact. You've got all of our contact information. We want to hear from you. And then department directories. So that's great. That's not where you want to go. That's, but I'm going to show you that too. So in case you want to write us anything, that's where that is. But let's try sign up for alerts, this giant icon that's right in front of you. So, I didn't oversee the design of this website. I did. So I should know this. But you've got email notifications. So you can sign up here to receive email updates from the city, and you can opt into what you'd like to receive email updates on.
Okay.
And so certainly something to your point that we're trying to streamline, and hopefully we'll have, and I'll let you know as soon as we do, is what's going in front of council kind of in a compact way so that you can see and access all of those documents.
Will there be a way for people to be notified about our community forums through this?
Yeah, absolutely. We do have our Lacey Life, which is our community newsletter where we have put in information, but I think to your point, just pushing out forums and other events is certainly something we could look at.
Guess that kind of addresses it, but then we have to be sure that every commission member, I mean, I just think it would be easier if we just got an email saying, here's your report.
And now we're down to the director's report.
Well, I just got a couple of quick updates that I wanted to make sure, that we are still working on this. When we were talking about the advisory board compensation update, the direction I got from the Commission on Equity was to go to other advisory boards and get some feedback and information from them. So since that meeting, I just want to let you all know I've been to the historical board, I have been to the planning commission, the Lacey Youth Council, and then our Parks, Culture and Recreation Board. So I'm hoping at our next meeting that I will compile all of the feedback we've received and be able to put together a recommendation for you all to take a look at and consider before moving it in front of the full city council. So that should be coming to you shortly. I just wanted to give you an update that yes, still working on that and hope to have a good conversation at our next meeting. The next item I have is the 2023 utility wrap project update. So I did take this item after discussion with the Commission on Equity to the Historical Commission, and they supported the individuals and organizations identified on the list with the addition of Barbara O'Neill. So it sounds like we have our first group for the utility wrap. And so one of Sadie's projects actually coming up here is going to be putting together the request for qualifications to be sent out. So that will be available. And when that is available, I'll certainly let you know. And I just wanted to let the whole commission know too, that we are certainly interested in youth artists as well as part of this process. And so as part of the request for qualifications, we'll certainly make that known that we're looking for youth artists. And this would be something where you would receive a contract for providing art. And then my last item we've already covered. So I think, Chair, that is all that I have for you this evening.
Great. We have 2 minutes left before we make our time. So good timing tonight, a good meeting. So if we have nothing else pending, then I will adjourn the meeting at exactly 8 p.m. Thank you.
Yeah, at the same time.
Have a good night.